This is Dr. Norman Rosenthal. He is a clinical professor of psychiatry at Georgetown University Medical School. He was a senior researcher at NIMH for 20 years, and he writes books every other day, it seems to me. He seems to do it really easily, although I know he would say that's not true. But his latest best-selling book is Supermind, which is about transcendental meditation and about the effects of it. He's also written Transcendence and a number of others. He actually was the researcher who discovered SADS, the Seasonal Affect Disorder Syndrome. So he's got a lot of credentials and stuff, and he can talk to us about meditation and its effects. But first, our first panel is going to be about the application of TM in various military roles, if you will. And so we're going to, as we will introducing all these panels, we want to show you just a brief snippet of what's possible.
Here we are once again, Specialist Villa from Italy, Chicago. So let us give you a little 1-2 on the situation here. That road down there is the one where we got blown up twice so far. We're trying to observe for any enemy activity.
Back in the day, I used to be known as the Sasquatch from Hell or the Coke Machine. My first summer in Iraq in 2008, that's when I experienced the incident that basically caused most of my stress for the next 6 years. What I started telling myself immediately was that I cannot let this happen again. Nothing is going to happen to my brothers again, not on my watch. And for the next 6 years, I wasn't able to sleep for more than, say, 2-3 hours a night. And I would wake up angry. I remember the worst part of it was waking up angry. Nobody tells you what it's going to be like when you get out. I would go mostly into self-destructive rages. There have been times where I thought I was going to become the next Tim McVeigh. Nothing worked. I mean, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers. I had 3-4 appointments a week for 2 years, and that didn't do anything for me. Nothing. I tried taking their medications, 13 of them, and that didn't work. They basically turned me into a zombie. I mean, I was nowhere to be found, even when I was awake. The first time I did the Transcendental Meditation session, it was the first time I felt like a rock had just been lifted off of me. And then a week of meditating just changed my life like that. I kind of struggled to stay awake the next couple of weeks because I had finally gotten my sleep back. I mean, I'd basically been sleep deprived for 6 years. I was able to get my peace of mind back, and it gave me, immediate sense of relief, purpose. And it's hard to find something like that. My brothers noticed that I'm a lot more calm. I tell all of them that I meditate, and I told them how much it's done for me. I would list the benefits that I've had from it, and then I would tell them it's just an opportunity to learn how to reboot your system, basically. Just like they trained you to be a killer, they should give you a set of tools that you'll need when you get back out. My greatest hope was to be able to find the peace that I do now, not just for myself, but also for my friends and family. Now, thanks to, the meditation, I have normal problems, like dieting, exercising, not smoking, and that's about it, really. Those are my only concerns in life right now. Well, with Transcendental Meditations, my life just changed instantly, for the better.
Transcendental meditation has been taught in the United States as a nonprofit organization for over 50 years. And thousands, tens of thousands of veterans have learned to meditate over that time on their own. David Lynch Foundation, about 4 or 5 years ago, established what we call Operation Warrior Wellness. Now it's the Center for Excellence in Veterans Health, in an effort to do two things. to bring the meditation to as many veterans who suffer from post-traumatic stress and their families, because we know PTS is contagious, and also to raise the funds to do large-scale studies. We have 3 individuals here, very fortunate that they've come, who are among the leaders in America, and maybe even in the world, on the effects of transcendental meditation for veterans, for active duty military personnel, and teaching the technique to cadets as a preventive measure. They're also 3 of my very best friends. So Dusty Baxley is the executive director at Boulder Crest Veterans Treatment Center. He's a TM teacher, a combat veteran, and a guide for the PATH program for combat stress recovery to post-traumatic growth. He's been leading the way in bringing TM to veterans. Dr. John Rigg is the traumatic brain injury, the director of the traumatic brain injury program at the Dwight David Eisenhower Army Medical Center, doing very interesting research on the effects of TM on TBI. And Dave Zobeck is a Vietnam-era Air Force veteran who earned a master's degree in counseling psychology. He's taught veterans extensively with meditation, but I think one of the most amazing things is he's been leading a very important program at Norwich University in Vermont. It's the oldest private military college in the country, where with the support of President Richard Schneider, Dave has taught over 600 cadets and some veterans and active duty military personnel with some very interesting research. I hand it over to Candy.
I want to start here with Dusty, because the question that comes to mind is, we hear all the time, and I did so many stories about post-traumatic stress and the problems of those that come home, and always one of the barriers was, well, they're not going to go see a shrink, because that's like, so I can't figure how you get those same people who are reluctant to go see a shrink to settle into TM.
Well, it's basically combat veterans teaching combat veterans. So at Boulder Crest Retreat, we developed this program over the last 3 years, and it's turned towards post-traumatic growth. There's a Dr. Rich Tedeschi down at UNC Chapel Hill that did a 30-year study on post-traumatic growth. And we've looked at this in our program, and it's been an amazing thing to watch guys understand finally, for one time in their life, since they've been enduring these symptoms, that there's nothing wrong with them. It's actually what's happened to them. Think about it. One man is much the same as another, and he is best who was trained in the severest school, Thucydides, Peloponnesian historian general. Combat changes people forever. You're different. You're always going to be different. You have to come to an understanding of what that change is. And when you realize that you've been trained for these symptoms, that you're hypervigilant, that you pay attention to detail, you tolerate no mistakes, that you can go from woe to go in a very big hurry. You've been trained to react. So you react from here with your actions straight away. It's kind of what gets you in trouble with mama when she's standing there talking to you and you feel threatened, because you overreact. And then you're judged. Then you isolate. You self-medicate, and you're in this loop you can't get back out of. You've turned off your sympathetic nervous system because there's no room for emotion downrange. When you come home, no one teaches you how to dial that down and how to reconnect with yourself. And when you start having these problems that you're isolating, self-medicating, you can't connect anymore, you can't sleep, you go and sit down with someone that you can't connect with. They don't understand you. So you're going to prescribe some medication to mitigate my symptoms. Let me live with a diminished version of myself. But if you're able to connect with me and say, there's nothing wrong with you. It's actually what's happened to you. And let me show you how you can grow from there and be a better version of yourself.
And you've had great success, obviously.
Our program is comprised of combat veterans and some very talented civilians.
And Dr. Rigg, you've also seen this obviously at the Eisenhower Army Medical Center, and brain injury obviously is your specialty. How does it fit into, how does TM fit into the overall program for vets who come back with a variety of physical problems, and how do you fit that in?
So, as has been mentioned, I'm the director of traumatic brain injury. I'm not a behavioral health specialist. I'm not a psychiatrist, a behavioral health person at all. I'm a brain mechanic, is the way I introduce myself to my patients. So I'm coming at it from a really mechanical perspective. My interest in medicine is through the neurochemistry of brain injury and what can I do to fix this. So I'm seeing patients that come to the TBI clinic. Their ticket into the clinic is traumatic brain injury. This is typically concussions when I'm talking about milder traumatic brain injuries. So some of the soldiers will tell me, I had a TBI, 99 playing high school football, 2001 in training, 2004 in Iraq, 2007 in Afghanistan, and now they're presenting with physical symptoms 8 years after their last TBI, concussion, and I'm thinking, is it really the concussion that's causing the injury? Well, the unique thing about my patients is that they've had concussions that occurred in combat when somebody was trying to kill them. And it's the significant stress factor, as Norman started mentioning, the hyperarousal of the amygdala, which I call the animal brain. I tell the soldiers, you have an animal brain and a human brain. The animal brain becomes aroused to protect you. It's a basic instinct of survival, and it doesn't understand geography. So you come back home, and the animal instinct stays aroused. It doesn't understand geography. It continues to operate, and the amygdala is wired faster than the cortex. Before you can think of what's happening, bam, the reaction, the non-thinking reaction occurs. So there's specific neurological pathways that are present in order to protect us. This is a survival instinct that we have been gifted with through 300 million years of animal evolution, 300,000 years of Homo sapiens evolution. We have this amazing mechanism that doesn't understand geography, that doesn't understand a war fought thousands of miles away and coming back home to the United States. So we have to calm this mechanism down. Now, one of the mechanisms that's used is medications, for example. Somebody mentioned that, I think, a couple of times. Well, medication is a global treatment. You take a medicine, it gets dissolved in your gut, you absorb it into your blood, and your bloodstream takes a chemical all over your body. Every cell in your body is getting hit by that chemical. And it may hit the parts of the brain that can calm down, but it hits everything else. The discovery that we made is what can we find, what neurological pathways, what neural pathways can we hit using strategies, focal neurological pathways that deal with reducing the stress. Thanks to David Lynch Foundation and others, we have discovered transcendental meditation. We have been gifted with trainers, Dusty trained some of our soldiers at our facility for a few years. We have been gifted with transcendental meditation, which calms down specific focal neurological pathways of hyperarousal, allowing that to quiet down so that the thinking, the cortex, what I call the human brain, the intelligent brain, can then assess a situation much differently than quick non-thinking reaction, resulting in, as you mentioned, a lowered physiologic response. I've got patients 30 years old with hypertension. Why? Because they have the rigid blood vessels of older patients? No, because they're walking around with adrenaline levels that are hyper-aroused all the time because they don't understand they're living in, back in the United States and not in a war zone anymore. So meditation strategies, TM, specifically addresses these pathways and calms that down, allowing the person to go through, I use the word transformation all the time that you used. It's a transformational experience. They are now seeing the world unconsciously differently, allowing their individuality, their cortical human brain to take precedent over this animal quick reaction, resulting in extraordinary lowering of the stress, which lowers what? Headaches, memory, sleep, the mood issues. That's what they're coming to present to me. All of those are physical symptoms that can be caused by a concussion, but 8 years after a concussion, now they're kept alive by the stress. So we're reducing stress, which has long-term survival consequences, not only just to reduce today, but this is something they can practice for the rest of their lives to reduce this issue that can really shorten their lives, the quality of their lives. You pointed out some of the data on hypertension, strokes and heart attacks that can be used.
So what's interesting to me here on this panel is, Dave, you at Norwich, which is a military school, yes. You teach TM to young cadets who haven't seen combat, but you also have some older folks that come back from combat. So you get them sort of before and after. You guys see the after effects, and you see it before. Do you notice a difference? Do you see those cadets after they return? Has TM made a difference in their war experience?
Well, normally what happens is that some of the students who are war veterans, come back after a deployment and then they're non-traditional students, so they're no longer members of the Corps. And they're usually a little bit older, so, and they want to reintegrate right away. What I do is, when I get in touch with them, I get a chance to teach meditation technique to them. And certainly, they are the same as any other war veteran that Dusty teaches or that John is working with. But they're in a different environment, and it's a little bit more accepting. One of the things I see that's a difference is that, of course, in working in my professional career with individual sessions and group sessions with post-traumatic stress disorder veterans, there's a tendency not to trust. There's certainly a tendency to disbelieve and not want to form a relationship with a therapist or a group of individuals talking about the most important secret parts of their lives or darkest moments of their lives. When I start teach the practice of transcendental meditation, what I see is that this technique and the results, and there's good results from individual and group therapy, but the results for meditation are that there's some empowerment here that's different. When they learn this knowledge, and that's what changes them, knowledge changes the nervous system. I give them knowledge. It's not about me. I give them this knowledge from this ancient technique and teach them how to use it. It's so simple, I teach 10-year-olds. So you're going to be a cinch. So they begin to practice this technique, and the first day they learn it, they get it. It's that simple. The beauty of it is, they go in their room, they can sit in their little corner, wrap their blanket around them, close their eyes, use this knowledge, and experience this stillness, this silence that is measured scientifically to be a game changer. It changes the brain and the perception. And I get feedback and said, this is the first time I slept in 6 years through the entire night. What did you do to me? I did nothing. I gave you this information and continue to practice. Now, the sweet thing about that is they don't have to worry about trusting anybody. They don't have to revisit what happened in war. They don't have to tell everybody in their group how they feel. When they finish and they open their eyes, there's this happiness. There's this peacefulness. The silence is pervasive. It continues on. And I liken it to working out in the gym. When you're working out and you strengthen your body and you leave the gym, you don't leave your strength in the gym. It goes with. So when you practice TM and you make contact with the deepest part of human nervous system, human awareness is silence. That's you. I'm not giving you an experience of anything that you don't have. This technique directs itself to the most powerful part of your own being, which is this pure silence, pure awareness. And when you finish and you walk about and it's still there, obviously it's unbelievable because it's the exact opposite of what post-traumatic stress is. It's chaos, it's entropy, it's stress. And all of a sudden, there's an interruption of that process and there's stillness. And the contrast sometimes is frightening. So they can do this by themselves. They don't need a therapist. They don't need a group. They don't need any advice. And so the whole technique, the course lasts 4 days, and I follow up in 10 days. But at Norwich, I see them all the time, and I'm always in touch with them. So that's a difference. And I say use all of your tools. Go to individual therapy. Go to group therapy. If you're prescribed a medication, take it. TM doesn't replace any of those. If you read your Bible, stay with it. If you exercise, stay with it. If you eat right, stay with it. Use all the tools because we're in this together. And we're going to get to the next level. So when there's 22 suicides a day, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And we have to do something about it. And this is a tool that can be effective immediately without believing in anything, without hoping for anything. Doubt all you want. I have plenty of war veterans that come in and say, this stuff doesn't work, and they use other adjectives to describe this. This is a family show. And I said, that's okay. That's okay. Bring all your negativity with you. In fact, bring Colonel Smith's negativity with you. Okay? Bring everybody's negativity. Y'all bring, come on, we're going to have a negativity party.
Dave?
Yeah, come on down. And here we go. So it's that kind of excitement that I feel when we teach, and I see the results immediately, and the power of this technique is remarkable.
I want to ask Norm about the overall research as pertains to vets, but first, because I saw you nod your head, because when Dave said the difference between the entropy and that profound silence and calm can be frightening, you nodded your head. Tell me about that.
I've had my own experience. So I served a 20-plus year career, multiple deployments. I came back from my last tour, no wife, no kids. I'd been deployed so many times it just didn't happen anymore. So I went to Australia for 15 years. I didn't have fellow veterans to talk to. I had no one to try to share what was going on with me. And I came back in January 2009, and I checked into VA, and they told me that there was something wrong with me, and that I was broken, and I had this disorder. I knew better. The problem was I wasn't sleeping. I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't get rest. I couldn't see to the next day. I did not want to be medicated. I took the 13-odd prescriptions and just dumped them in the trash on the way out the door. I met someone who gave me this beautiful gift of transcendental meditation. I'd been sleeping probably 3 hours every 7 or 8 days from pure exhaustion or self-medication at the end of a bottle. And I'd looked too many times down the barrel of the gun. So I go to this guy, and this is the weirdest thing I'd ever experienced. This guy's going to do this ceremony and sing and wave flowers, and I'm like, oh, God. Do not want to do this. So I got up to leave, and I'm down on the floor, and I'm sliding the door trying to get out, and the guy stops and looks at me and goes, you're leaving. I said, dude, you're weird. I cannot do this. And he says, I know the girl that gave this gift to you, and she's hoping that this will keep you alive. She never wants to talk to you again if you don't sit down and take this technique. And I'm like, oh, God. So I sit down, could not wait for him to finish. He sat down next to me, put me through a guided meditation. When he brought me out of it, I looked at him and said, please don't let this stop. I have not felt this calm in 20 years. Let this stay. So he wouldn't let me leave. I was so groggy. Made me drink juice and eat cookies. And God. So I got on my motorcycle, rode home. I laid down, felt really relaxed. I slept 12 hours. Had the wrinkles on the face, the drool everywhere, and I'm like, okay. So I call the guy up. I'm like, what the hell did you do to me? I said, whatever it is, I want to do this some more. And he just laughed, and he said, I didn't do anything. I've given you a key. The key is going to unlock you. And so, yeah, the difference, the contrast for us that can't sleep, can't figure it out, the brain won't work right. We can't accept anything. It's so hard. I feel so bad for the VA and DOD. In August 2015, Journal of American Medical Association published an article on trauma, PTS, and current programs, and they said nothing's working. Guys are still staying symptomatic. We need a new and innovative approach. We've got to do something better. 700,000 veterans, which is about 30% of the 2.7 million deployed, are suffering with post-traumatic stress. If you multiply that times 3, the average size of the family, we've got 2.1, 2.2 million people in need. We've got to do better. So we found a program that we could offer, and our cornerstone meditation practice is transcendental meditation. Why? You give me mindfulness or give me something I've got to focus and concentrate on, and I'm not sleeping, and I'm medicated, it's not happening. I get frustrated, just want to get up and walk out. But you give me this effortless technique that works by itself in spite of myself, oh my God, it happens automatically. So I stay calm, I'm sleeping, I'm in a 7-day intensive program. Now all the other modalities that are being explored, you're now open to, and you start to gravitate to. And you learn that the answer to what's going on lies within you. And all you got to do is unlock it again and come back to yourself. And then we follow them for 18 months, and it's been unbelievable. We're currently part of an 18-month longitudinal study looking at the effects of post-traumatic growth. And right hand in hand with that, twice a day is their meditation practice, the ability to stay regulated, to take deep breaths, to be able to open their heart and connect again with their loved ones. And it's amazing to watch them come home. And they'll come out to the retreat, and their wife will come up to you and go, thanks for bringing my husband home. I didn't think he was going to make it. So, yeah, the contrast, It's unbelievable inside of you.
So we hear powerful personal stories as well as you all with these, so many people that you work with. So Norm, give us the stats behind this and what the research shows about helping these vets.
Right. I think the research is not where we'd like it to be. What we want is large controlled studies. They are very, very expensive to do. But what we do have is so encouraging, going all the way back to the post-Vietnam era, where there's a very nice controlled study by Brooks and Scarino, 10 people with PTSD given TM, 10 the regular treatment of the day randomly assigned, and at the end of the study, which was something like 3 or 4 months, those who had been given the TM said, we don't need any more treatment from the VA, we're good to go. The others said, well, we don't actually see very much difference. Very, very powerful study. Fast forward, not enough from the post-Iraq, Afghanistan work. We did a small pilot study, and I'm going to throw this to Dr. Rigg in a moment because I know you've done some work as well in this regard. But what I would like to mention is what you've seen here is not a belief system. It's not we believe in something. These are observations. In Dave's case, many recruits, many officer trainees who have shown the difference. Dr. Rigg, Dusty, all these people have actually seen it. I've seen it. We had a small pilot study. The changes were really extraordinary. And I also want to mention, it's not only what it does, but it's also the absence of side effects, because some of these currently available treatments, it's like there's virtual reality re-exposure, where they re-expose people in a kind of video situation to the bombing and the landmines and the gunfire and the things that traumatize them, in a classical way of trying to decondition them. And, whether it works or not, I'm not exactly sure, but you can imagine the actual trauma involved in the treatment itself, as compared with something that's really a gentle, easy, comforting. You heard Dusty's feelings after that first TM teaching. It's a gentle, kind intervention. It's easy. Now, I'm also thinking, because for a decade, I had a company where we ran trials, and I work with a lot of pharmaceutical companies on medicines. And I just imagine if there were some pharmaceutical representatives here in the audience, and if they figured if this technique could be somehow put into a capsule, patented, bottled, wow, I could make a killing. The trouble with TM is there's not enough money in it. So that's why we don't get these TV ads for it and so on and so forth. So that's why what we're trying to do, in a very small way compared to that kind of mass blitzing of the population, is to put out the message that we've all seen with our own eyes, and I have done so also through examining the research. But I'd like to flip it to you and ask you about your latest data.
Sure. The most recent paper we published was on the use of psychotropic medications, and we followed 74 patients, 37 who had done TM, 37 who had not done TM, a small study again, because we haven't had the financial resources to do larger ones. And we found the use of medications to significantly have been reduced in the patients that were meditating. Less new prescriptions, reporting a decrease in symptoms. And it was really astounding. We're also looking into pain, how pain has been decreased in patients that have used meditation as a strategy. We published case reports of individuals. I mean, there's been some anecdotal, phenomenal patients that came in on antipsychotics like Seroquel and things who, within a week or two, well, maybe not a week, that's a little too optimistic, but within a few weeks of their treatment, were able to sometimes mistakenly took themselves off medications without the proper guidance of the psychiatrist, which is not a good idea, but we're off of medications.
I really want to say what an important point that is. It doesn't mean that TM has got to work all by itself,
right.
But if it lessens medications, which has a lot of side effects, or works together to make a greater composite effect, this is a huge deal for these individuals.
Yeah. It's a very empowering thing that they're able to do themselves without having to rely. I can't agree with you more about going through the prolonged exposure therapy where they're reliving the trauma. And I'll see patients many times because prolonged exposure is kind of the treatment of choice, that and long cognitive processing therapy are the treatment of choice that the Army uses to treat individuals with post-traumatic stress. But, particularly, and whether they work or not, we can debate that and talk. Certainly everybody that goes through it, some success, some not successes. But those are the treatments that have been determined. But while a patient goes through the prolonged exposure and they're reliving that stuff, their nightmares are increasing, their headaches are increasing, their symptoms are getting worse. And perhaps at the end they're better, and that's what I tell them. But as Dusty, as you mentioned, like you go to TM, it's easy. You go to 4 sessions and you start getting results. And you don't need to develop the therapeutic bond with the therapist you're going to see for multiple sessions. You basically go in, you learn a skill, like David was talking about, and you practice it. And soldiers, are pretty tough guys, man. They, like Dusty, man, they want to fix things. You don't want to be at the mercy of a therapist. It's a very powerful position to be a combat veteran. And by empowering them with a technique that they can use and practice themselves, you put the responsibility is really theirs. I mean, that's one thing we teach them. You can get better. You got to do something. It's not about taking a pill, or nothing I'm going to say is going to be the brilliant words that are going to fix this for you. But by practicing on a regular basis, cultivating this skill, you're able to change the way you feel.
Thank you. I'll let you wrap up. But I just wanted to add that there are some studies currently underway. The Department of Defense has provided $2.4 million in a small grant to do a study on about 200 veterans at the VA hospital in San Diego. David Lynch Foundation, our Center for Excellence in Veterans Health, will be collaborating with the new Cohen Veterans Network, which is being established in about 30 cities. Steve Cohen establishing this. Also, the Wounded Warrior Project has provided some grants to the David Lynch Foundation, and Adam Friedman has been overseeing a study on the effects of TM on about 200 of the veterans around the country with some very significant changes in the symptoms of post-traumatic stress. I just want to say that if anyone is interested here in finding out more, I'm going to do something very bold here. Sam, if you could put this up. I'm going to give you my personal, and I'm going to do that through the whole time, my personal email address, and you at home can get it too. You can just email me at bob@davidlynchfoundation.org, bob@davidlynchfoundation.org, and I will take your email and send it to the appropriate person within the David, that's me, within the David Lynch Foundation for you to be able to speak to people who can answer some of your questions and address some of your concerns.
I wish we could do this much longer. You guys are amazing. Every time I sit and talk to one of you, I'm amazed. When I had a day job and was talking to people on Capitol Hill when they were in the Veterans Committee or whatever, I'd always shove one of Norm's books at them and say, you really ought to look at this, right? I think your personal experiences will have much more impact. So thank you so much for coming here and doing this for us. We really appreciate it. You were great. Effects. But first, our first panel is going to be about the application of TM in various military roles, if you will. And so we're going to, as we will, introducing all these panels, we want to show you just a brief snippet of what's possible.
Here we are once again, Specialist Villa from Italy, Chicago. So let us give you a little 1-2 on the situation here. That road down there is the one where we got blown up twice so far. We're trying to observe for any enemy activity.
Back in the day, I used to be known as the Sasquatch from Hell or the Coke Machine. My first summer in Iraq in 2008, that's when I had 3-4 appointments a week for 2 years, and that didn't do anything for me. Nothing. I tried taking their medications, 13 of them, and that didn't work. They basically turned me into a zombie. I mean, I was nowhere to be found, even when I was awake. The first time I did the transcendental meditation session. It was the first time I felt like a rock had just been lifted off of me. And then a week of meditating just changed my life like that. I kind of struggled to stay awake the next couple of weeks because I had finally gotten my sleep back. I mean, I'd basically been sleep deprived for 6 years. I was able to get my peace of mind back, and it gave me, immediate sense of relief, purpose. I mean, it's hard to find something like that. My brothers noticed that I'm a lot more calm. I tell all of them that I meditate, and I told them how much it's done for me. I would list the benefits that I've had from it, and then I would tell them it's just an opportunity to learn how to reboot your system, basically. Just like they trained you to be a killer, they should give you a set of tools that you'll need when you get back out. My greatest hope was to be able to find the peace that I do now, not just for myself, but also for my friends and family. Now, thanks to, the meditation, I have normal problems, like dieting, exercising, not smoking, and that's about it, really. Those are my only concerns in life right now. Experienced the incident that basically caused most of my stress for the next 6 years. What I started telling myself immediately was that I cannot let this happen again. Nothing is going to happen to my brothers again, not on my watch. And for the next 6 years, I wasn't able to sleep for more than, say, 2-3 hours a night, and I would wake up angry. I remember the worst part of it was waking up angry. Nobody tells you what it's going to be like when you get out. I would go mostly into self-destructive rages. There have been times where I thought I was going to become the next Tim McVeigh. Nothing worked. I mean, psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers.
This is Dr. Norman Rosenthal. He is a clinical professor of psychiatry at Georgetown University Medical School. He was a senior researcher at NIMH for 20 years, and he writes books every other day, it seems to me. He seems to do it really easily, although I know he would say that's not true. But his latest best-selling book is Supermind, which is about transcendental meditation and about the effects of it. He's also written Transcendence and a number of others. He actually was the researcher who discovered SADS, the seasonal affect disorder syndrome. So he's got a lot of credentials and stuff, and he can talk to us about meditation. And it's